I watched my best friend fall to his death. I held his body, felt the cold stillness of it. We buried him. We cried. But the next morning, he was sitting in class, smiling, alive, asking me why I looked so pale. Welcome to Eerie Short and Scary Stories, where the shadows between truth and nightmare come alive. Tonight, we dive into a story that asks one terrifying question. What if reality itself was being edited, and you were next to be erased? High school was boring, until it wasn't. My name's Kevin, and I used to think plot holes were just lazy writing in movies. Little mistakes that didn't matter. Now, I think they're warnings. Markers. Clues that reality isn't as stable as we want it to be. It started with Jake. My best friend since second grade. We were in that old house on Darrow Lane, the one with the half-collapsed roof and the rusted swing set out back. We were just messing around, being dumb, filming something for a class project. Jake climbed up on this beam that barely looked like it could hold a bird. I told him to get down. He laughed. And then the wood cracked. I heard the sound before I even saw it happen. He fell. Hit the ground hard. His neck bent in a way no neck should. I screamed. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. He wasn't breathing either. I remember the cops. The ambulance. His mom's scream when they told her. I remember standing in the church pew, staring at his closed casket, trying to make sense of the hole he left behind. And then the next morning, he was in homeroom. Slouched in his seat. Same hoodie. Same stupid grin. He looked over at me and said, "You finished the homework?" Like nothing ever happened. I didn't know what to say. I just stared at him. At his face. His hands. Looking for bruises, scars, anything that would prove I wasn't going insane. But there was nothing. He was fine. Alive. Like death had been erased. At first, I thought maybe I'd imagined the whole thing. Some kind of breakdown. Maybe I dreamed it. That was easier to believe than what I was really thinking. I tried to play it cool. Pretended everything was normal. But I couldn't shake it. Every time I looked at Jake, I saw the broken version of him lying on that rotten floor. Then, other things started changing. I had this scar on my hand. A tiny crescent-shaped one from when I cut myself trying to open a can of soup like an idiot. One day, I looked down, and it was gone. Completely. No trace of it. Like it never happened. I asked my mom if she remembered when it happened. She didn't. Books I'd stacked neatly were suddenly out of order. My backpack would be zipped differently than how I left it. One time, my teacher walked into class wearing a green dress. I looked down to write something, and when I looked up again, it was blue. Nobody else noticed. Or maybe they did. Maybe they just didn't say anything. That's when I started paying attention. Watching things. Taking mental notes. People would say things they'd already said. Or forget conversations we just had. I'd hear the exact same cough from the same student in the same rhythm, 3 days in a row. It was like pieces of time were being reused. And the weirdest part? The more I noticed, the more wrong everything felt. Like reality was trying to correct itself around me, but it wasn't doing a very good job. Something was off. I could feel it in my bones. Something was wrong with the world, and I was the only one who remembered how it used to be. I started keeping a notebook. It wasn't anything special, just a cheap spiral-bound one I picked up from the corner store. But every time something felt off, I wrote it down. Dates, times, faces, strange phrases people repeated word for word. I'd flip through the pages at night, half hoping I was just being paranoid, half knowing I wasn't. It didn't take long for the patterns to show up. My math teacher called roll one day and skipped a name that had always been there. Emma Lasky. She sat 2 rows in front of me. She always had a pen with a chewed cap and this twitch in her right eye when she was thinking hard. Then one day, gone. Desk empty. No explanation. I asked Jenna, who sat beside her, "Hey, where's Emma?" She blinked like I'd just made up a word. Who? The next day, her desk was gone too. Like it had never been there. People started repeating themselves. Whole conversations. I'd ask someone a question, and they'd answer it twice in the exact same way, down to the pause and the shrug. And it wasn't déjà vu. I'd go back to my notebook and find the entry. Word for word. Same conversation. Different day. Then there was the time I walked home and saw the same guy jogging past me 3 times. Same pace. Same headphones. Same sweat-stained shirt. I just stopped and stared after the third time, waiting for him to loop around again. He never did. That's when I met Dennis. He was always around, but no one ever really noticed him. Sat by himself. Doodled these strange shapes in the corners of his math worksheets. One day, he leaned over to me during lunch, eyes locked on mine like he'd been waiting for the right moment. His voice was low, but steady. "You see the errors too, don't you?" I didn't answer right away. I just stared at him, heart beating louder than it should have been. Then I nodded. He smiled, not like he was happy, more like he finally wasn't alone. Dennis started sitting with me. Talking more. He had this notebook full of diagrams, lines through people's names, scribbled equations, pages torn out. He said there were things, editors, he called them. Not people. Not machines. Just things. Shadows that moved between the cracks of what we call real. They didn't talk. They didn't think like we do. They just corrected. They fixed whatever didn't belong. Erased things that didn't fit. Rearranged events like puzzle pieces. All to make the story flow better. Cleaner. Tighter. As if reality had a script, and they were the ones making sure no one went off it for too long. I wanted to believe he was making it up. That it was just some elaborate story he built in his head to explain the weirdness. But I couldn't ignore what I'd seen. Couldn't pretend that I hadn't watched people vanish. Couldn't unsee that guy jogging by 3 times in the same minute. Couldn't forget Jake, dead, then not. Still, I told myself Dennis was just eccentric. Too many conspiracy videos, maybe. Too much time alone. Until that night behind the gym. I was walking home late after detention. Dennis had told me to start watching the spaces where things didn't make sense, empty hallways, flickering lights, moments of silence that lasted a beat too long. I didn't really understand what he meant until I saw it. A figure. Or the outline of one. No face. No hands. Just movement. Like watching a person through warped glass. It stood at the edge of the hallway near the lockers and raised one long arm toward the wall. And right before my eyes, the graffiti on locker 246, the one that said, "Mr. Harrow sucks eggs," melted away. Not cleaned. Not repainted. Just gone. And then it looked at me. Or I think it did. I couldn't see eyes, but I felt them. I didn't move. I couldn't. I stood there frozen while it flickered, like a corrupted video frame, and then vanished. No sound. No rush of air. Just gone. I didn't sleep that night. I just stared at my notebook. Every word, every line, suddenly more real than anything else around me. The world wasn't broken. It was being rewritten. It was outside my window. Just standing there. Still. Watching. I couldn't see a face. Just height, too much of it. And the way it moved, or didn't move, was wrong. Its whole outline buzzed like an old TV with no signal. Not quite flickering, not quite shaking, just shifting. Like it couldn't settle on being one thing. I stared at it. My heart was beating so fast I could feel it in my throat. I blinked once. Just once. It was gone. I didn't even have time to breathe before the silence in my room turned deafening. Not quiet, empty. Like the world around me had suddenly paused. I waited for something to happen. Something else. Nothing did. The next morning, I looked for Dennis. He wasn't in his usual seat. Wasn't in the hallway. Wasn't by the vending machines where he always stood during break, chewing gum and sketching like nothing else mattered. I asked a few people if they'd seen him. They just shrugged. Some asked, "Dennis who?" I opened my backpack during lunch, pulled out his sketchbook. The one he'd given me. The one filled with strange diagrams and those drawings of figures with too many joints. I flipped through it, page by page. Blank. Every single page, white. No pencil marks. No pressure dents on the paper. Just clean, factory-new sheets. As if nothing had ever been drawn there. As if Dennis had never existed. But I remembered. I remembered him. I remembered how he leaned in and said, "You see the errors too, don't you?" And now he was gone. That was the moment I knew this wasn't just about oddities. This wasn't random. It was structured. Like the world was shedding pieces of itself that didn't fit the narrative anymore. The days that followed felt like someone else was controlling the dial on reality. Conversations around me started looping. Mr. Ellis in biology said the exact same sentence about cell membranes 3 times in a row, same hand gesture, same pause. I looked around. No one reacted. Everyone kept scribbling notes like it was perfectly normal. At home, my mom served meatloaf. Same plate, same side of peas. The next night? Same plate, same side of peas. Even the exact moment she said, "Eat up before it gets cold," matched the rhythm of her words the night before. And the next night? Again. 3 days in a row. Identical. I started memorizing her sentences, whispering them with her as she spoke them. She didn't notice. And then? I started forgetting. At first, it was small. I walked into my room and forgot what I went in there for. That happens to everyone, right? But then I couldn't remember my middle name. Stood in front of the mirror trying to say it out loud, and nothing came out. Just a blank space in my mind where something personal used to be. I checked my school ID. It only said, Kevin. I looked at the family photos on my wall. In one of them, my dad used to wear a red flannel. It was now blue. In another, I was holding a trophy, I don't even remember what for. The plaque was smudged. The letters had faded overnight. My eyes in the photo looked wrong. Unfocused. Like I wasn't really there when it was taken. I backed away, turned to the mirror, and looked at myself. And then it happened. My reflection blinked. I didn't. I froze. I stared, waiting for it to happen again. It didn't move. Just stood there, still as stone. But I knew what I saw. That blink wasn't mine. Something was in there with me. Or worse, something was using me as a placeholder. Like I was just another prop in the story. I sat down on my bed and stayed there until morning. I didn't sleep. I just listened. To the house. To the hum of the lights. To the quiet noise that didn't quite feel like silence. I felt like I was being edited, piece by piece. Memory by memory. Like the story of who I wasn't mine to tell anymore. I ran. I didn't wait for answers, or another sign, or for things to get worse. I just packed what I could and left. No plan. No destination. Just movement. The road was empty. The town faded behind me like it was never there to begin with. For the first hour, I felt something close to relief, like maybe I'd outrun it. Then I saw the gas station. Old building. Neon flickering above the pumps. One dusty vending machine out front. I stopped for gas, used the bathroom, didn't think much of it. Got back on the highway and kept driving. 2 hours later, I saw it again. Same broken sign. Same rusted air pump. I thought I'd made a wrong turn. Maybe my GPS was bugging out. I turned it off. Took another route. It didn't matter. No matter which direction I took, no matter how many turns, side roads, shortcuts, I always ended up back there. That same gas station. I even passed a delivery truck with the same dent in the same place, 3 times. I wasn't escaping. I was on a track. A loop. Someone, or something, was making sure I didn't leave. That's when I knew I had to confront Jake. He looked up at me when I walked into his room like he'd been expecting it. Not surprised. Not scared. Just tired. I didn't know what to say at first. I just stood there, watching him blink like a machine powering up. So I asked him, "What do you remember?" His head tilted slightly, like my voice didn't quite register. Then he said, in a voice barely above a whisper, "You're not in this version." That sentence hit me like ice. This version? He wasn't shocked that I was asking. He wasn't confused. He was informed. He added, "You weren't supposed to notice." That was all. And then it started. I didn't hear them come in. I felt them. Like the temperature had dropped, but not in the room. In my head. My thoughts stopped moving. My memories didn't feel anchored. And from the corners, under the bed, across the ceiling, through the floorboards, they leaked in. Thin. Black. Moving like corrupted film. They didn't make noise. Not footsteps. Not whispers. Just this, sickening clicking. Like someone editing audio, cutting up pieces of life and splicing it all wrong. One of them touched my shoulder. And something left me. Not pain. Not even fear. Just a chunk of me, missing. I couldn't remember the name of my elementary school. Then it was the street I grew up on. My first bike. The sound of my grandfather's voice. Gone. They didn't erase me. They revised me. I started seeing flashes, like someone else's slideshow playing over mine. I was in a classroom that didn't exist. Same uniform. Same face. But I was different. Smiling. Comfortable. Laughing at a joke I'd never heard before. I was watching a version of myself that had no idea I was watching. I slammed my hands against the wall, shouted his name, my name. He didn't flinch. Didn't look up. I wasn't there. He was the version that made the final cut. I was being overwritten. I could feel the ground under me shift, not physically, but like I was standing on a scene that was being deleted in real time. People I remembered blinked out. My own thoughts stuttered. I tried to recall my last birthday, and nothing came. Just a blank. Then, I tried to count backwards. I couldn't. Numbers weren't connecting. And then I saw them again. The shadows. They were surrounding me, arms elongated, fingers twitching in slow, jagged angles. They didn't attack. They just hovered. Observed. Like editors hovering over a messy draft. I wasn't screaming anymore. I couldn't. Even that emotion felt borrowed now. And somewhere, beyond it all, I knew. I knew that I'd been redlined. I was a cut character. Someone flagged for deletion. My only crime? Noticing. I should have stayed ignorant. I should have laughed along. I should have let Jake die. I woke up in my bed. Sheets tucked just right. The sun slipping through the curtains. Birds chirping like some sound engineer had set the ambience to peaceful. For a second, I thought maybe I'd dreamt it all. Maybe everything, the editors, the loops, the gas station, was just some twisted nightmare spun out of stress and sleeplessness. But the longer I stared at the ceiling, the more wrong it felt. It wasn't the nightmare that unsettled me. It was the normal. Every detail was too neat, too sharp, like it had been freshly printed. My phone buzzed. New day. New messages. Except, every photo in my gallery was gone. No texts. No missed calls. My notes app? Empty. Like I'd never typed a word into it. My entire digital trail had been scrubbed clean. Then came Jake's message. Wanna hit the arcade later? No mention of the editors. No memory of what we saw. Just casual. Friendly. Familiar. Like we were still the same kids from before it all cracked. Like he hadn't watched me fade into something else. Like he didn't remember watching me fall apart. I didn't answer him. I couldn't. Because it wasn't just my phone that felt off anymore. It was everything. The man on the train. He was standing by the door, holding the railing, and I only noticed him because he wasn't blinking. Then I realized, he had no face. No eyes. No nose. Just smooth skin stretched like someone had forgotten to finish rendering him. People around him didn't even react. Then my neighbor, old lady from 2 doors down, I saw her watering her plants from her front porch. 5 seconds later, I saw her again, walking her dog on the other side of the street. Same sweater. Same lipstick. Same exact cough. At first, I thought maybe I was tired. Or hallucinating. I told myself anything I could just to keep my grip. But then came the woman in the coffee shop. She looked at me. Smiled. Said, "Good to see you again, Marcus." Marcus. I've never been called Marcus in my life. I told her she must have mistaken me for someone else. She laughed and said, "Don't be silly. You were just here yesterday." I wasn't. I went home. Locked the door. Sat on the edge of my bed, just trying to slow my thoughts down enough to understand what was happening. I opened my voice recorder. I figured if they were editing the world, maybe they couldn't touch what I spoke out loud. Maybe hearing my own voice would anchor me. So I hit record. I said everything I could. My name. What I remembered. What I saw. What I'd lost. I kept my voice steady, even when my hands shook. I made sure to speak clearly. Then I played it back. It wasn't my voice. It wasn't even English. I don't know what language it was. Harsh, clipped syllables, repeating in a rhythm that made my stomach turn. It sounded like static learning to speak. Like something mechanical trying to mimic something human. I listened until the end. There was one word that stood out. Clear. Crisp. Like it was meant for me. Marcus. So now I sit here. Waiting. Listening. Wondering if I'm really me, or if I'm just another version slotted into a scene that never belonged to me. Because the edits didn't stop. They're following me. And worst of all? I'm starting to forget who I was supposed to be. They're not just correcting typos in reality. They're correcting us. Versions of us. Personalities. Timelines. Little quirks that don't quite fit. They slice and paste, overwrite and smooth out. Keep the story clean. Neat. No loose ends. No detours. No characters wandering off script. I used to think they only erased memories. But they go deeper than that. They cut out who you are and leave the version that behaves better. Easier to control. Easier to forget. Every time you notice, really notice, they show up. It's not about belief. It's about awareness. Awareness is the glitch. Your mind trips over something that doesn't line up, and just like that, they hear it. Like a ripple in their draft. And once they hear it, they don't stop until they've cleaned the page. I don't know if this recording will survive. I've tried writing, but the ink bleeds away. Emails bounce back. Every method I've used to tell someone has vanished before it could reach them. Except this. If you're hearing me now, then maybe this version of you is still untouched. Or maybe you're already a replacement, and you just don't know yet. Either way, pay attention. Have your coworkers repeated the same joke a few days in a row? Has your pet looked at you like you're unfamiliar? Have you forgotten your own birthday for just a second, and then remembered it was always something else? These are signs. They're edits. They don't rip out whole stories at once. No, they do it line by line, memory by memory, until you can't tell what parts of your life are yours anymore. And the scariest part? Most people thank them for it. They're happier. More productive. Smiling with eyes that forgot how to cry. So if your world feels too perfect, too clean, too seamless, you should be worried. Because that means they're already working on your rewrite. And they don't like plot holes. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more eerie tales.